What becomes of a king who discards his destiny? Alpha King Alaric Volov possessed everything a ruler could desire, yet he callously rejected his destined mate, Serafina. In a display of heartless cruelty before the entire kingdom, he stripped her of her title and branded her a baroness, a mark of shame. He banished her to the unforgiving wilderness, effectively sentencing her to death, all in favor of a politically advantageous queen. 6 years crawled by, and Alaric celebrated the birth of his new heir, a symbol of his solidified power. As a final, twisted act of malice, he dispatched an invitation to Serafina, summoning her to the pup's naming ceremony. A cruel jest intended to mock the barren mate he so readily cast aside. But Alaric had committed a grave error, a blind spot in his arrogance. He remained ignorant of the truth. Serafina carried his child when she was driven from his kingdom, and now she was not returning alone. The envelope arrived, a weighty thing crafted from thick, creamy cardstock. It carried the faint, unmistakable scent of pine and ozone, the signature aroma of the Crimson Peak Citadel. In Serafina's hand, it felt like a stone, a burden from a past she had fought tooth and nail to escape 6 years prior. The address was not befitting an alpha. It didn't read Alpha Serafina, the title she had earned through blood and hardship in the lawless rogue territories. It wasn't even addressed to Ms. Hayes, the unassuming name she used in the quiet human town bordering her land. No, the missive was addressed to the barren reject, a deliberate insult designed to cut deep. Serafina's knuckles whitened as she gripped the envelope. Even unopened, she knew its sender. Only one person possessed the level of callousness, the sheer arrogance, to send a letter across a continent for the sole purpose of inflicting pain. Mama! Serafina's posture softened instantly. She dropped the letter onto the rustic wooden table of her cabin, as if it were burning her hand, and turned toward the sound. Kyle, her eldest son by a mere 3 minutes, stood in the doorway, rubbing the sleep from his eyes. Though only 5 years old, he was already tall for his age, sporting a shock of unruly, jet-black hair and a sharply defined jawline that was a miniature echo of his father's. "I'm here, baby," she murmured, gently brushing his hair back from his forehead. "Go back to bed. It's not morning yet." "Gideon kicked me again," he grumbled, but his gaze remained fixed on the letter. "What's that?" "Nothing, Kyle. Just junk." He didn't appear convinced. His eyes, those impossibly fiery amber eyes, the unmistakable, damning eyes of the Volov royal bloodline, narrowed suspiciously. "It smells bad," he said, wrinkling his nose. "It smells like him." Serafina's blood ran cold. Her sons had never met Alaric. She had never even uttered his name in their presence. Yet their blood recognized him. The magic that bound them, the Alpha Quad bond, an anomaly unheard of in 1,000 years, instinctively knew its origin. After tucking Kyle back into the small room he shared with his identical brothers, Gideon, Ree, and Malachi, Serafina returned to the kitchen, the invitation still lying on the table. She cleared her throat, the sound tight in her chest. Her hand trembled as she broke the golden wax seal, embossed with the wolf and crown of the Volov kingdom. You are hereby commanded by royal decree to attend the naming ceremony of His Royal Highness Prince Victor Volov, firstborn son and true heir to the throne, born of His Majesty, Alpha King Alaric Volov, and Her Majesty Queen Isabella Volov. Your presence is requested to bear witness to the glorious continuation of the royal line, a blessing the moon goddess bestows only upon the worthy. It was a command, an imperious summons. But the handwritten line at the bottom, scrawled in Alaric's sharp, aggressive script, contained the letter's true message. Come and see what a real family looks like, Serafina. See the son a true queen gave me and reflect on your own failure. Serafina sank into a chair, the memory striking her with the force of a physical blow, as vivid and raw as the day it occurred. 6 years ago, the Great Hall. She, a mere 20 years old, overwhelmed with terror, yet so deeply in love that she felt her heart might explode. The moon goddess had blessed her, a low-born daughter of the insignificant Riverbend pack, by designating her as the true mate to the newly crowned Alpha King, Alaric Volov. He had been so charming then, so powerfully alluring. But the charm had dissipated soon after the mating ceremony. He became cold, distant. He needed an heir quickly to secure his reign. And after 6 long months, she remained barren. He had summoned her to the throne room, a vast space filled with hushed expectation. Every pack alpha was present. Lord Andrew Davis, Lady Charlotte Blackwood, and her daughter, Isabella, Serafina Hayes. Alaric's voice boomed, devoid of any warmth or affection. Dr. Michael Peterson, he called, the royal physician, a weasel-like man with darting eyes, stepped forward, clutching a scroll. "My king," Dr. Peterson began, carefully avoiding eye contact with her. I have completed the examination. The lunar, she is barren." The word barren echoed through the suffocating silence. It was a death sentence. A lunar's worth was determined by her womb. A faulty mate. A faulty mate, Lady Blackwood whispered, loud enough for the entire hall to hear. Isabella, standing beside her mother, cast Serafina a cruel, satisfied smirk. Serafina had grabbed Alaric's arm, her fingers digging into his flesh. "No, Alaric, no. It's a lie. I feel we are mates." He regarded her hand on his arm with pure disgust, as if she were something unclean, and violently shook her off. "A barren mate is no mate," he declared, his voice sending shards of ice into her heart. "She is a curse from the goddess. I, Alpha King Alaric Volov, reject you, Serafina Hayes, as my mate and my Luna." The bond didn't merely break. It shattered into a million pieces. The pain was a living entity, a white-hot knife twisting in her soul, ripping a scream from her lungs. She collapsed, clutching her stomach as the court watched on, their faces a mixture of pity and judgment. "Guards," Alaric commanded, his voice devoid of emotion. "Remove this failure from my sight. She is exiled. If she is ever seen within the Volov territories again, she is to be killed on sight." They dragged her away, past the smirking face of Isabella Blackwood, who was already insinuating her hand into the crook of Alaric's arm, claiming her prize. What Alaric didn't know, what Serafina herself had barely realized, was that her nausea that morning wasn't simply the result of nerves. The barren diagnosis wasn't just a lie. It was a catastrophic one. She was 6 weeks pregnant with his 4 alpha heirs. Present day. The cabin. Serafina stared at the invitation. Come and see what a real family looks like. He sought to mock her. He desired to parade his new queen and his lone, paltry son before the barren reject, to solidify his perceived correctness, to complete her humiliation. He had no idea what he was inviting into his home. For 6 years, she had lived in hiding, protected by the small but fiercely loyal rogue pack. She had built the Willow Creek pack from the ground up. She had trained relentlessly. She had hunted with unparalleled skill. She had raised 4 of the most powerful alpha pups the world had ever seen, teaching them to conceal their scent, to control their immense power, to become better men than their father. "A reflection of failure," she whispered, a dangerous, cold smile spreading across her face. "Oh, Alaric," she said to the empty room, "you want to see what the goddess bestows on the worthy?" She picked up the invitation. "You want to mock me?" She stood and walked to the small bedroom. Kyle, Gideon, Ree, and Malachi were sleeping in a tangle of limbs, a miniature pile of raw alpha power, 4 identical faces, 4 mops of black hair, 4 sets of royal amber eyes. "You want to see my failure?" she whispered, gently brushing a hand over Malachi's head. "Fine. We'll attend your little party. Let's see who's mocking whom when the day is done." Serafina knew she couldn't simply walk into the Crimson Peak Citadel alone. Alaric's arrogance was undoubtedly his greatest weakness, but his kingdom's army was a very real threat. She was an alpha, but she was one wolf against 1,000. She needed an ally. Leaving her sons in the capable care of her beta, a fierce woman named Clara, Serafina embarked on a 2-day journey to the Stone River territory. Its alpha was a man she hadn't seen in 6 years. a man who had also been present in the throne room that fateful day. Alpha Julian Thorne. Julian was Alaric's rival in all things, in territory, in wealth, and in ideology. Where Alaric was a tyrant who ruled through fear, Julian was a diplomat who led with respect and fairness. He had been the only one in the great hall that day whose face displayed not contempt, but pity and anger. She found him in his study, surrounded by stacks of maps and scrolls. He looked older, the lines around his eyes etched deeper, but his steady gray gaze remained the same. "Seraphina," he breathed, standing so abruptly that his chair toppled over backward. He didn't move to embrace her. The protocols were too deeply ingrained. "By the goddess, we all thought you were dead." "Not dead, Julian. Just busy," she said, her voice dry. She laid the invitation on his desk. He read it, and his handsome face contorted in disgust. "He is a monster to send this to you, even if he believed you were just a packless omega. This is beyond cruel. He wants to gloat." "He does," Seraphina agreed. "Which is why I intend to accept." Julian stared at her, incredulous. "Sarah, you can't be serious. It's a trap. He'll kill you the moment you set foot on his land." "The exile is for Seraphina Hayes, the rejected mate," she interrupted, her voice firm. "I am Alpha Seraphina of Willow Creek. He commanded my presence. He won't kill me in his own throne room, in front of every Alpha in the Alliance. It would be a sign of weakness. Still, Sarah, what is the point? To let him hurt you again?" Seraphina took a deep breath. She had guarded her secret for 6 long years. Not even Clara knew the full truth of her son's lineage. But she couldn't undertake this mission alone. "He didn't just reject me, Julian. He rejected his legacy." She paused, allowing the words to sink in. "He called me barren." Julian's eyes widened as he connected the dots. The timing, the 6-year absence. "No," he whispered, realization dawning. "I was pregnant when he exiled me." Julian gripped the edge of his desk, his knuckles turning white. "A pup. You have his pup." "Pups," Seraphina corrected, her voice flat. "Plural. 4 of them. Boys. And they all have his eyes." Julian staggered back and sat down hard, his face pale. "4? Quadruplets? Goddess Almighty, for Alpha heirs." She nodded, her expression unreadable. "They are exceptionally strong. Their auras are already manifesting. It's becoming increasingly difficult to conceal them." Julian ran a hand through his hair, his mind reeling. The political implications were staggering. A king who had rejected his true mate and his firstborn heirs, 4 of them, in favor of a chosen queen from an allied pack. It was a scandal that could tear the kingdom apart. "He called me barren, Julian," she said, her voice low and vibrating with contained fury. "He humiliated me, exiled me, and attempted to erase me from existence. He did it all for his new queen, Isabella, and the alliance with her mother, Lady Charlotte Blackwood. He made a political choice over his fated mate, and now he wants to flaunt his new, single son in my face as proof that he was right." She leaned forward, her eyes blazing with determination. "I am not going there for revenge. I am going there for justice. I am going to show the allied packs, his entire kingdom, exactly what he threw away. I am going to reveal the true heirs." Julian remained silent for a full minute, his mind clearly working at lightning speed. "He'll try to take them from you," he said finally, his voice grave. "Let him try," she snarled, her lip curling. "He can't claim them, not officially. He already has a true heir. Doesn't he? To acknowledge my sons would be to admit he was wrong, to admit he was tricked, to admit that his entire marriage to Isabella is a political sham built on a lie. His pride will never allow it." "So what is your plan?" Julian asked, his eyes searching hers. "You walk in, show them the boys, and walk out?" "I walk in," Sarah corrected. "I show them the boys, and I watch his world burn down around him. I watch him realize that the barren reject holds the entire future of the Vulov line in her hands. And then, I walk out." Julian looked at her, a newfound respect dawning in his eyes. The broken girl from the throne room was gone, replaced by a queen. This is the most dangerous game you could possibly play, Serafina. I know. Alaric will be enraged. Isabella will be murderous. Her mother, Lady Blackwood, will see her entire family's political power threatened. They will try to kill you and the boys. Which is why, Serafina said, meeting his gaze steadily, I am asking you to come with me as my ally, as an official envoy from the Stone River Pack, escorting the Alpha of Willow Creek. They won't dare attack me if I am under your protection. Not on their holy day. Julian stared at the invitation, then at Serafina. He thought of Alaric's tyrannical rule, the heavy taxes, the cruel punishments for minor infractions. This was a chance to introduce a check on Alaric's power, a chance to see true justice served. He won't just be enraged, Julian said slowly, a grim smile touching his lips. He will be ruined, and I, for one, would very much like to be there to see it. He stood up and offered his hand. Alpha Serafina, it would be my honor to escort you and your heirs to the Crimson Peak. She took his hand, and for the first time in 6 years, she felt a flicker of something other than mere survival. She felt hope. The Crimson Peak Citadel loomed over the valley, a fortress of dark gray stone that seemed to drink the sunlight. Serafina had forgotten how much it oppressed the landscape, how much it had oppressed her. She sat in a carriage provided by Alpha Julian, her 4 sons sitting opposite her. They were dressed in fine matching tunics of deep emerald green, the color of Julian's Stone River Pack, but with a silver willow leaf clasp at their throats, her own pack sigil. They looked like little princes. Kyle, the warrior, was staring out the window, his jaw set. Gideon, the thinker, was quietly cataloging every guard they passed. Ree, the diplomat, was nervously smoothing his tunic, and Malachi, the wild one, was bouncing his leg, his amber eyes bright with a dangerous mix of excitement and mischief. Remember the plan, Serafina said softly, drawing all 4 gazes. Do not speak unless spoken to, Gideon recited. Do not flare our smell, Ree added, referring to their auras. Don't shift even if the mean lady is mean, Malachi pouted. And, Kyle finished, his voice a low growl that was startling in a 5-year-old. Stay next to Mama. Protect Mama. Serafina's heart ached with love. That's right. No matter what happens, no matter what anyone says, we stand together. We are a pack. Understand? Yes, Mama, they chorused. The carriage rolled to a stop. Alpha Julian, already waiting in the courtyard, opened the door. He was magnificent in his own dress uniform, projecting an aura of calm, unshakable power. The ceremony is underway in the Great Hall, he said softly, helping her down. Our timing is perfect. The guards at the main door, men from the Volov Royal Guard, moved to block their path. The ceremony is sealed, Alpha Thorn. No one else may enter. Julian simply raised an eyebrow, his expression conveying his displeasure. I am escorting Alpha Serafina of Willow Creek. She is here at the personal and written command of your king. Will you be the one to tell him you defied his decree? The guards paled and stepped aside, their resolve crumbling. The massive oak doors of the great hall swung open. The room was packed. Every alpha and beta of note was present, hundreds of them, all facing the raised dais. And on that dais, King Alaric Volov stood tall and imposing, a golden circlet glinting on his black hair. He looked just as she remembered, achingly handsome, powerfully built, and as cold as glacial ice. Beside him, in a chair that was clearly meant to be a throne, sat Queen Isabella. She was beautiful, dressed in crimson, and held a bundle of white blankets in her arms. She was beaming with smug, triumphant pride. Alaric was in the middle of a speech, a celebration of true lineage, a celebration of strength. For too long, this pack has waited for a worthy heir. The moon goddess has looked past mistakes, past failures. His gaze swept the room, and he seemed to be searching for someone, preparing to make an example. He was looking for her. He was about to use her as a prop. And she has blessed a true union. She has blessed my queen, Isabella, and she has given us a son. A son, he boomed. To carry on the Volov name, my son, Prince Victor. He raised his glass to the continuation of the line. Free of weakness, free of... His voice trailed off, faltering. His eyes had found the entrance. The entire hall, following his gaze, turned as one. A collective, audible gasp filled the room. Serafina stood in the doorway, framed by the light. She was not the weeping, broken girl they remembered. Her hair was longer, wilder. She was dressed in the severe, practical black leather of a rogue alpha, stark and menacing against the opulent silks and velvets in the room. She was thinner, harder, and the look in her eyes was not fear. It was ice. Alpha Julian Thorne stood at her right, a clear political statement of alliance and support. And at her left, what is the meaning of this? Isabella's voice, high and shrill, cut through the silence. Guards, remove that thing. She is not welcome here. Alaric didn't speak. He was staring at Serafina, then down at the 4 small children who had moved to flank her, 2 on each side. For small boys, for mops of identical black hair, for small, defiant faces that were a perfect, miniature copy of his own. Serafina. Alaric's voice was a low, dangerous rumble. He hadn't seen their eyes yet. They were too far away. You dare? After I commanded you to. You commanded me to attend. Serafina's voice rang out, clear and strong, cutting him off. It didn't waver, not even slightly. You commanded me to come and bear witness. So I have. Isabella laughed, a sound like glass breaking. You came, you pathetic creature. You actually came. Alaric, darling, look, the Baron came to see the son she could never give you. She probably brought some village mutts to try and make you jealous. Mutts? Serafina repeated the word quietly. She began to walk forward. The crowd parted for her like the Red Sea. Julian followed, a silent, menacing shadow, and the 4 boys walked with her, their small boots making the only sound in the dead, silent hall. They walked up the central aisle, past the shocked faces of Lord Davies and Lady Blackwood. They walked until they stood at the foot of the dais, directly below the king and queen. Now Alaric could see. Now the entire front row could see. The boys, their chins lifted. For pairs of fiery, unmistakable amber eyes met the king's. The royal bloodline of the Volovs possessed 2 unique traits: the jet-black hair and the fiery amber eyes. It was a genetic marker that had not been diluted in 1,000 years. Isabella's new baby, Prince Victor, wrapped in his blankets, had his mother's pale blue eyes. Alaric dropped his goblet. It crashed onto the marble floor, the red wine spilling like blood. He didn't look at Serafina. He couldn't. He was staring at the 4 boys as if he had seen ghosts. His face, which had been arrogant and cruel, was now a mask of pure, ashen shock. What? He choked out, the sound barely audible. What is this? Serafina smiled. It was the coldest, most terrifying smile anyone in that room had ever seen. You invited your rejected Baron mate to mock her, your majesty, she said, her voice dripping with venomous politeness. So I came, and I brought my failure with me. She placed a hand on Kyle's shoulder and another on Gideon's. Alaric Volov, she said, her voice rising to fill the hall. I present to you your firstborn sons, Kyle, Gideon, Rhee, and Malachi. Kyle, the boldest, stepped forward an inch. He looked up at the king, his expression not one of awe, but of judgment. Hello, father. The word father echoed like a gunshot, shattering the silence. Isabella shrieked, her hand flying to her mouth. Alaric staggered back a step as if he had been physically struck. The kingdom had just fractured. The great hall was so quiet you could hear the frantic pounding of Isabella's heart. She had scrambled to her feet, clutching her own pale-eyed son so tightly that the baby began to wail, a thin, reedy sound that was instantly drowned out by the suffocating silence. Lies! Isabella shrieked, her voice cracking. It's a trick. She's a witch. She found some brats and enchanted them. They're not. They can't be. Alaric was frozen, his mind a roaring void. He was locked in a staring contest with 4 miniature versions of himself. The amber eyes goddess. The eyes. They were his eyes. They were his father's eyes. They're impossible, he whispered, his voice hollow. Are they? Serafina's voice was dangerously calm. 9 months, Alaric. That's all it takes. You exiled me in the spring. They were born in the deep winter. You can count, can't you? But, Baron, he stammered, turning his head as if searching for an answer. Dr. Peterson, he said you were barren. Yes, he did. Serafina agreed, her gaze sweeping the crowd until it landed on a small, sweating man in healer's robes, cowering near the back. Dr. Michael Peterson. Tell me, doctor, how did you determine my condition? Was it a medical marvel or was it a command performance? All eyes turned to Dr. Peterson. The weasel of a man looked like he was about to faint. He glanced desperately at Queen Isabella, then at her mother, Lady Charlotte Blackwood. Speak, man. Lord Davies boomed from the crowd, his face grim. He was a practical alpha, and he could see the stability of the kingdom imploding before his very eyes. Peterson stammered, his voice barely a whisper. He's a liar, Isabella screamed, pointing a shaking finger at the doctor. He told us she was barren. He must have misdiagnosed. He's incompetent. Seize him. Yes. Lady Blackwood echoed, rising from her seat. A terrible, incompetent mistake. This changes nothing. The king has a true heir born of his wedded queen. A mistake? Serafina asked, her voice soft but laced with steel. It didn't seem like a mistake 6 years ago. It seemed very precise, very convenient. Seize her. Isabella shrieked at the guards. She is exiled. Her presence is treason. Kill her and her monsters. The royal guards took a hesitant step forward, but were met by the solid wall of Alpha Julian Thorne. She is Alpha Serafina of Willow Creek, Julian stated, his voice a low growl that promised violence. She's my guest here, at your king's written command. You will not touch her. But Alaric. Isabella turned to the king, her face a mask of desperate, ugly rage. Darling, are you going to let this walk in here and tell these filthy lies? Tell them she's nothing. Tell them Victor is your heir. Alaric was still staring at the boys. The mate bond, which he had so brutally severed, was screaming within him. It wasn't dead. It had merely been buried under the agony of rejection. But now, seeing them, it was a phantom limb, aching with a pain he had thought he had conquered. His limbs throbbed with a pain that resonated deeper than the physical realm. A relentless roar echoed in his ears, drowning out the whispers of the court. The air itself felt tainted, foreign. Serafina's intoxicating scent lingered, a wild symphony of storms and winter roses, a testament to her untamed spirit. Yet, beneath that captivating aroma, the scent of his 4 sons, amplified, overwhelmed him. It wasn't merely his blood. It was pure, unadulterated royal alpha blood, intensified fourfold. His gaze drifted towards the small, wailing bundle cradled in Isabella's arms. A wave of pride, a moment of fleeting relief, had washed over him at first sight. But now, staring at the babe's pale blue eyes, at the soft, almost delicate curve of his features, a chilling realization struck him. He bore no resemblance to Alaric, none whatsoever. Instead, a horrifying image flashed in his mind, Captain James, Isabella's personal guard, standing rigidly behind her throne, his face ashen, his eyes darting nervously towards the exits. A new, glacial dread, far more terrifying than any he had ever known, began to creep into the deepest recesses of Alaric's mind, eclipsing all other thoughts. Sarah, he croaked, his voice barely a whisper. Horse! Finally, his eyes found hers. The sight of her, strong, beautiful, radiating a righteous fury, shattered something within him. Sarah, what have they done? They lied, Alaric, she stated simply, her voice a razor's edge. And you were all too eager to believe them. No, Dr. Peterson suddenly shrieked, collapsing to his knees as two of Julian's guards seized him. No, it wasn't my fault. I didn't want to. What? Alaric roared, pivoting towards the cowering physician. It was her, Peterson screamed, pointing a trembling finger directly at Queen Isabella. It was Lady Isabella before she was queen. She came to me. She said the king wanted the alliance with the Blackwood pack. She said Serafina was in the way. She demanded I fake the report. Chaos erupted. Accusations flew like poisoned darts. Liar, Isabella shrieked, her voice laced with venom. Filthy liar. I am not. Peterson sobbed, tears of terror streaming down his face. She threatened my family, my daughter. She said if I didn't, Lady Blackwood's men would. And she gave me poison. She told me to make Serafina barren, to poison her womb so she could never. A wave of nausea washed over Serafina, the revelation a physical blow. She hadn't known that part, the depth of Isabella's depravity. She instinctively placed a protective hand on each of her sons' heads. But I couldn't, Peterson wailed. I swear to the goddess, I just faked the report. I told Lady Isabella the poison had worked. But I never gave it to her. I just told the king she was barren. I didn't know. I didn't know she was already blessed by the goddess. I didn't know. The confession hung in the air, a damning weight of truth. Isabella remained silent, her face drained of all color. She had been exposed utterly and completely. Alaric turned, his movements slow, almost robotic. He fixed his gaze on Isabella, the woman he had chosen, the woman he had elevated to queen, the mother of his supposed heir. Isabella, he said, his voice terrifyingly quiet. Alaric, she began, her voice attempting a seductive purr, a pleading tone. Alaric, baby, listen to me. It was for you. It was for the kingdom. She was a weak lowborn. She wasn't worthy of you. I am worthy. I gave you a son. We have a son. She held up Prince Victor as if he were a shield, a bargaining chip. A son, Alaric repeated, his voice devoid of emotion. He looked at the wailing infant. Then, his eyes drifted past Isabella to the white-faced guard, Captain James. He took a slow, deliberate sniff of the air, his senses heightened, honed by his Alpha King lineage. He had been so blinded by his own pride, his insatiable need for an heir, that he had never truly checked. The baby didn't smell like him. He didn't smell like a Volov. He smelled of salt and steel, the scent of Captain James clinging to him like a second skin. The entire world tilted on its axis. The blood drained from Alaric's face, leaving him pale and hollow. The betrayal was so complete, so profound, it bordered on the absurd, the comical. He hadn't just been deceived by his queen. He hadn't just rejected his true mate. He hadn't just exiled his 4 true-blooded alpha heirs. He had done it all for another man's child. He threw back his head and roared, a sound that was not a display of power, but a raw, unadulterated expression of agony, the cry of a soul being ripped in two. The sound vibrated through the very foundations of the castle. Stones shattered, windows exploded, and every wolf in the room, including his 4 sons, instinctively dropped into a submissive crouch. Every wolf except Serafina. She stood tall, unbowed, her hands resting protectively on her son's shoulders, a beacon of defiance in the face of his crumbling world. The king's world, built on lies and arrogance, came crashing down around him. The echoes of Alaric's roar faded, leaving a ringing, terrified silence. His amber eyes, no longer merely fiery, burned with a madness that sent shivers down the spines of everyone present. He was a king teetering on the brink of his own sanity. "Guards," he whispered, his voice a raw, rasping sound. This time the guards didn't hesitate. "Take the doctor to the dungeons. Take Lady Blackwood to the dungeons. Lady Charlotte, Lady Blackwood, who had been desperately trying to shrink into her seat, let out a squawk of protest as she was hauled to her feet. "You can't. The alliance is broken," Alaric snarled, his gaze snapping back to the dais, to Isabella, who was now trembling uncontrollably, her face a mask of pure terror. She had backed up against the throne, clutching the wailing baby. "And you?" Alaric said, his voice dropping to a dangerously low register. "You, filth." He advanced on her. Captain James, the guard, made a fatal error. Driven by some latent sense of honor or sheer panic, he drew his sword and stepped in front of his queen. "My king, please." Alaric didn't even break his stride. His hand shot out with blinding speed, grabbing the guard by the throat. There was a sickening, wet crunch of bone and cartilage, and Captain James crumpled to the floor, dead before he even hit the polished marble. Isabella screamed, a high-pitched, animalistic sound. Alaric turned his attention back to her. He didn't touch her, didn't need to. He simply looked at her, then at the child in her arms. "You put his bastard in my son's crib?" Alaric growled, the words tearing from his throat. "No, Alaric. He's yours. I swear it." She lied, her eyes wide and frantic. "He is. It was just one mistake. A moment of weakness. But Victor is yours. He is. He smells of him," Alaric roared, pointing at the lifeless body of the guard. "He has your eyes. He has nothing of me." He snatched the baby from her arms, the movement brutal. Isabella shrieked, a sound of pure, unadulterated despair. "No." Alaric held the wailing infant aloft. For a heart-stopping moment, Serafina was certain he was going to dash the child against the stones. Her sons gasped, and even Kyle took a tentative step forward, his protective instincts flaring. But Alaric just looked at the child, his face contorted with a profound, soul-deep loathing. He turned and thrust the baby into the arms of a terrified noblewoman standing nearby. "Take it. Get it out of my sight. It is nothing." He turned back to Isabella. "As for you, Queen." "Alaric, please," she begged, all pride gone, falling to her knees and grasping at his robes. I am your mate. I am your chosen. I love you. You are nothing." He spat, kicking her hand away with disgust. "You are a liar, a traitor, and barren." The irony was so thick it was suffocating. He had rejected his true, fertile mate for a barren, deceitful one. "Guards," he bellowed, "take this creature to the dungeons. She will await public trial for treason, for adultery, for the attempted murder of my. His voice broke, the raw pain too much to bear. He couldn't finish the sentence. He couldn't bring himself to look at Serafina, to face the consequences of his actions. As Isabella was dragged away, screaming and cursing Serafina's name with every breath, Alaric was left standing in the wreckage of his life. A king without a kingdom, a wolf without a mate. The throne room was a scene of utter devastation. A dead body lay sprawled on the floor. His kingdom was in an uproar, teetering on the brink of chaos. His heir was a bastard, a stain on the Volov line. His queen was a traitor, her lies having poisoned everything she touched. And at the foot of the dais stood the woman he had so callously thrown away, the woman who held his entire future, the key to his redemption. Slowly, agonizingly, he turned to face her. The rage had dissipated, leaving behind only a hollow, empty void. The madness had receded, leaving him with a stark clarity he hadn't possessed in years. He looked at Serafina, and it was as if he was seeing her for the first time. The strength in her spine, the fire in her eyes that now outshone his own, the unwavering love and protection she showered upon the 4 boys, his boys. The mate bond, which had been a dull ache for so long, flared to life, a desperate, screaming plea for reunification. He had been a fool, a monster, an arrogant, blind fool, driven by pride and ambition. "Serafina," he whispered, his voice cracked and raw. He took a step down from the dais, the symbol of his power, his authority. And then another. He was the king, yet. He fell to his knees before her, the Alpha King Alaric Volov, humbled and broken, kneeling in the blood and wine of his own arrogance, at the feet of the barren reject he had exiled. Sarah, he choked out, tears he hadn't shed since childhood streaming down his face. Please, I did not know. I was blinded by pride, by her. He gestured weakly towards the door where Isabella had been dragged away, a testament to his folly. I was a monster, I know that. I threw away the greatest gift the goddess ever gave me. I threw away you. He looked at the four boys who were staring at him with a mixture of fear, curiosity, and Kyle's unwavering anger, their expressions a stark reflection of his own failings. My sons, he breathed, his voice trembling. My heirs, my true heirs. He looked back at Serafina, his eyes a raw, open wound of pleading. Come back, Sarah. Please come back. The rejection, we can fix it. I will reproclaim you. We can perform the ritual anew. I will make you my queen, my true queen. We can be a family. Our family. The entire kingdom held its breath, suspended in anticipation. This was it. The ultimate redemption story. The rejected mate vindicated. The king penitent. The family restored. All the alphas, even Julian, looked at Serafina, expecting her to weep, to fall into Alaric's arms, to accept the crown she had always deserved. But Serafina didn't move. She stood her ground, unmoved by his display of remorse. Serafina looked down at the king, kneeling at her feet, stripped of his power, his pride, and his dignity. She saw his tears, heard his desperate promises, felt the frantic pull of the damaged mate bond, begging her to say yes, to forgive, to heal the rift and make them whole. 6 years ago, she would have died for this moment, craved it with every fiber of her being. 5 years ago, she would have wept with relief, believing her nightmare was finally over. Even 1 year ago, she might have considered it, if only for her sons, if only to give them the life they deserved. But standing here, amidst the rubble of his making, she felt nothing but a cold, hard pity. She looked at his bowed head, then at her 4 sons. Kyle was glaring at Alaric, his small fists clenched tight, his face a mask of protective fury. Gideon was watching Alaric with a chillingly analytical expression, as if he were a bug pinned beneath glass, dissecting his every move. Rhee looked sad, his lower lip trembling, not for the father he had never known, but for the pain etched on his mother's face. And Malachi, ever the enigma, just looked bored and confused, oblivious to the magnitude of the moment. These were her boys, her pack, her family. A family forged in hardship, bound by love, and fiercely loyal to one another. Serafina's voice was quiet, but it cut through the tense silence, reaching every corner of the hall. Alaric looked up, hope warring with fear in his amber eyes. You stand there, she said, her voice shaking, not with tears, but with a deeply buried rage that had been simmering for years. In a room soiled by your choices, a man lies dead at your feet, a consequence of your arrogance. Your chosen is in the dungeon, facing the consequences of her treachery. Your bastard heir is wherever you discarded him. And you kneel in the mess you made. And you dare to speak to me of family? Sarah, please, he begged, his voice thick with desperation. I will atone. I will spend the rest of my life trying to make amends. You don't even know what you're asking, she interrupted, her voice gaining strength, fueled by years of suppressed anger and resentment. You think you can just say sorry, and I will what? Forget the humiliation? Forget the exile? She took a step back, pulling her sons closer, shielding them from his broken promises. Forget the 6 years I spent not as a queen, but as a rogue, hiding in the mud, hunting my own food, terrified every single day that your patrols would find me, that your men would kill me or worse. Her voice cracked, the memories flooding back, threatening to drown her. Do you know what it's like to give birth alone on a dirt floor in a freezing cabin? To give birth to 4 children, screaming in agony, convinced you're dying, with no one to help you, no one to even hold your hand? Alaric flinched as if she had physically struck him, each word a blow to his conscience. I didn't know. You didn't know, she roared, and the alpha power in her voice, her power, not his, slammed into him, making him recoil in shock. You didn't know because you didn't care. You didn't bother to look. You didn't question the barren diagnosis from a weasel of a man because it suited you. It suited your ambition. It suited your alliance with the Blackwoods. She was crying now, hot, angry tears she had refused to shed for 6 long years. You didn't just reject me, Alaric. You rejected them. She pointed to her sons, her voice trembling with fierce protectiveness. You sentenced your own blood, your heirs, to death by exile. What if we had died? What if I hadn't been strong enough? What if a rival pack had found us? Would you even have mourned? Yes, goddess, yes, he cried, his voice cracking with genuine remorse. Liar. She spat, her eyes blazing with contempt. You would have toasted your true heir and dismissed me as a mistake, a blemish the goddess was right to erase. You would have mocked my memory, just as you tried to mock me with this invitation. She ripped the golden invitation from her tunic, the symbol of his false remorse, and threw it at his face. It fluttered to the ground between them, a useless gesture in the face of his monumental failure. You don't want a family, Alaric. You want absolution. You want your heirs back. You want to fix your image to salvage your legacy. You're not sorry you did it. You're just sorry you got caught. No. He scrambled forward on his knees, ignoring the pain, desperately trying to grab her hand, to bridge the unbridgeable gap. Kyle, in a flash of protective fury, stepped in front of his mother, shielding her from his touch. He kicked the king's hand away with surprising force. Don't touch our mother, Kyle snarled, his small face a mask of royal fury. For a fleeting second, his amber eyes seemed to glow with nascent power, and a faint, but undeniable, alpha aura flared from him, pushing Alaric back, a warning he couldn't ignore. Alaric stared at his 5-year-old son, who was so fiercely protective of his mother, willing to defend her against him, the king. The full, devastating reality of his failure, his true failure, hit him with the force of a physical blow. He hadn't just lost his kingdom or his queen. He had lost them. He had lost the right to even know them, to be a part of their lives. Serafina placed a calming hand on Kyle's shoulder, gently pulling him back, reassuring him that she was safe. She looked at Alaric, her face now calm, the tears gone, leaving behind a steely resolve. The storm had passed, leaving behind a chilling clarity. We are not yours to reclaim, Alaric, she stated, her voice firm and resolute. You severed the bond. You made your choice. You chose power over fated love. You chose Isabella? She said the name like a curse, a venomous reminder of his betrayal. I am your mate, he whispered, a broken, desperate last plea. No, Serafina said, her voice final, leaving no room for argument. You were, but the goddess gave me a choice, a second chance. To stay bound to the monster who rejected me, or to bind myself to the new pact she gave me, to my sons. She turned her back on him, a queen rejecting a king. She turned her back on the throne, choosing freedom over gilded chains. Julian, she called out, her voice carrying a quiet authority. Alpha Julian Thorne, who had been watching the unfolding drama with a grim, profound respect, stepped forward, his presence a silent promise of protection. Serafina, my sons and I are leaving. We will accept your escort back to Stone River territory. We are no longer safe here. No, wait. Alaric scrambled to his feet, desperation clawing at his voice. You can't leave. They are my heirs. They belong here. Serafina turned slowly, deliberately, and the look in her eyes was one he would see in his nightmares for the rest of his life. A chilling blend of pity and contempt. They belong, she said, her voice dropping to a deadly whisper that sent a shiver down his spine. To me, I am the one who raised them. I am the one who protected them. I am the one who didn't throw them away for political gain. Their name is Hayes, not Volov. You can't. I am the king. I forbid it. You are a king, Serafina corrected him, her voice laced with scorn. With no queen, and, as of this moment, no heirs. She turned to the assembled alphas, to Lord Davies, to the other leaders of the packs. They were all watching, their faces grim, taking in the full extent of his downfall. You all bore witness today, Serafina called out, her voice resonating with newfound power. You saw the truth. You saw a king who was duped by a simple lie because his ego wished it to be true. You saw him reject the goddess's gift, forsaking his mate and his heirs for a fleeting alliance. She gestured to the dead guard, to the empty throne, to the chaos engulfing the kingdom. You see him now, a king with a bastard's child, a dead guard, and a kingdom in chaos. She pulled her 4 sons close, her hand a protective shield against the broken king. And you see these boys, the true blood of the Volov line. But this blood will not be raised by a man who breaks bonds, who mocks the weak, who rules by fear. She looked at Alaric one last time, her eyes devoid of all emotion. You wanted to mock me, Alaric? Fine. Here is my mockery. She gestured to the throne room, to the broken pieces of his life. You can keep this cold, empty stone fortress. You can keep your broken throne. I have everything I need. She turned and, with Alpha Julian on one side and her 4 small, powerful sons flanking her, she began to walk towards the exit, leaving Alaric behind in the ruins of his own making. Stop her! Alaric screamed at his guards, his voice cracking with desperation. Stop them! That is my blood, my property. The guards hesitated, torn between their loyalty to their broken king and the powerful, united front of Serafina and Alpha Julian. Touch them. Julian's voice was a low, menacing promise that brooked no argument. And Stone River declares war on Crimson Peak before the sun sets. A war, Alpha King. A war he could not afford. A war he was in no position to fight. His alliances were shattered. His people were in doubt. He was trapped, utterly and completely broken, forced to watch as Serafina, his true mate, his only love, the woman he had branded a failure, walked out of the great hall, taking his entire legacy, his entire future, his 4 alpha heirs with her. The Baron Reject had just walked away with the entire kingdom. The carriage ride away from Crimson Peak was silent, each passenger lost in their own thoughts, processing the magnitude of the day's events. The boys, exhausted by the emotional weight of the day and the immense flaring of power, had fallen asleep, piled together on the velvet seat, seeking comfort in each other's presence. Kyle's hand was still fisted in Serafina's tunic, even in sleep, a testament to his unwavering loyalty. Julian rode his horse alongside the carriage, his face set in grim lines. Serafina watched the dark, oppressive silhouette of the citadel fade into the twilight, the symbol of Alaric's reign receding into the distance. She didn't feel triumphant. She didn't feel victorious. She just felt tired, bone-tired, emotionally and physically drained. The man she had once loved, the father of her children, was a broken shell, a shadow of his former self. His kingdom was in turmoil on the brink of collapse. His life was ruined, his future bleak. And she had been the one to swing the final, fatal hammer blow, shattering his world beyond repair. It was justice long overdue. But justice, she was learning, tasted bitter, leaving a lingering residue of sadness and regret. He will not let this go, Julian said, his voice low as he rode closer to her open window, his words breaking the silence. I know, she replied, not taking her eyes off the fading horizon, a silent acknowledgement of the challenges that still lay ahead. He will come for the boys. Let him try, she said, the fire returning to her voice, the protective instincts of a mother taking over. He can't challenge me in open war. Not now. You saw the other alphas, Lord Davies, the others. They are disgusted. They saw for true heirs and a king who was willing to let them die for a lie. His power is broken. His political power, Julian corrected gently, his gaze knowing. But his personal power, he is still your mate, Sarah. The bond, however damaged, it will drive him mad. A wolf without a mate, a king without his heirs. He is now the most dangerous creature on this continent. Serafina finally turned, looking at Julian, meeting his gaze with unwavering resolve. He is not my mate. He is the father of my children. My mate, if I ever had one, died in that throne room 6 years ago. Julian nodded, accepting her words, understanding the depth of her pain and her unwavering commitment to her sons. Where will you go? You can't go back to Willow Creek. It's not safe. He knows where it is now. No, she agreed, her mind racing, trying to formulate a plan to secure her son's safety. I don't know. Come to Stone River, he offered, not for the first time, his voice sincere and unwavering. As my guest, my ally. The boys, they can be trained properly. They will need to be. The power I felt from them, from Kyle, it's unheard of. They will need a strong alpha to guide them, to help them control their abilities. They have one, Serafina said instantly, her eyes flashing with fierce protectiveness, a silent warning. I know, Julian said, raising a hand in peace, assuring her that he meant no disrespect. I meant they will need allies, strong allies who will stand by them no matter what. They will need a pack, a large pack that can protect them as they grow. Stone River offers that. No, I offer that. Serafina looked at him, truly saw him. Julian Thorne. He was a good man, a just man, a loyal friend. He had never once looked at her with anything but respect, had never tried to take advantage of her vulnerability. He was the antithesis of Alaric, a beacon of stability in a world of chaos. We will consider it, she said, a hint of warmth creeping into her voice. For the winter, perhaps. He nodded, a small, relieved smile playing on his lips. That is all I ask. He spurred his horse ahead to scout the road, leaving Serafina alone with her sleeping sons, allowing her a moment of peace to gather her thoughts. She looked at Kyle, her little warrior, the protector of his family. At Gideon, her little scholar, whose keen intellect would undoubtedly guide them through many challenges. At Ree, her little peacemaker, whose empathy and compassion would heal the wounds of the past. And at Malachi, her little whirlwind, whose boundless energy and unwavering spirit would always keep them on their toes. They were the Volov legacy, the future of the kingdom. But they would be raised with the heart of a Hayes, with the strength, resilience, and unwavering love that had defined her life. They would be raised by her, shaped by her values, and protected by her unwavering devotion. She didn't know what the future held. Alaric was a shadow that would loom over them for the rest of their lives, a constant threat to their safety and their happiness. There would be more battles, more challenges, more obstacles to overcome. He would undoubtedly try to reclaim his sons, to reclaim her, to restore his tarnished legacy. But for the first time in years, Serafina wasn't afraid. She had faced her demons. She had walked into the heart of her own humiliation and had burned it to the ground, emerging from the ashes stronger and more resilient than ever before. She had taken his mockery and turned it into his ruin, exposing his lies and shattering his carefully constructed world. She was no one's reject. She was no one's failure. She was Alpha Serafina Hayes, the mother of the 4 Alpha heirs, and she was the one who held all the cards, the one who would determine their destiny. The carriage rolled on into the night, carrying the true future of the kingdom far away from the cold, empty throne and towards a new, uncertain, but undeniably free dawn. The weight of the past, the shackles of the past, had finally been broken. The king is broken. The queen is in chains, facing the consequences of her actions. And Serafina, the barren reject, has walked away with the entire future of the kingdom, leaving Alaric to wallow in the ruins of his own making. But do you really think Alaric will let this go? Do you think a king, a mate so thoroughly ruined, will just give up? Will he simply accept his fate and allow Serafina to raise his sons in peace? The story of Serafina and her 4 alpha heirs is far from over. Their journey has just begun, and the challenges they will face, the obstacles they will overcome, will undoubtedly shape the future of the entire kingdom. This was not the end. This was just the beginning. What did you think of Serafina's ultimate choice? Was she right to walk away, to reject Alaric's plea for forgiveness? Or should she have seized the opportunity, taken the throne, and reshaped the kingdom in her own image? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you loved this story of drama, twists, and sweet, cold revenge, please like this video and share it with another werewolf romance fan. Your support means the world to me. And if you want to hear what happens next, if you want to know what Alaric does when he comes to reclaim his sons, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell. You won't want to miss the next chapter, the next thrilling installment in the saga of Serafina Hayes and her 4 alpha heirs.